Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is Connected in Creativity Day. My name is Elizabeth Garcia, and I manage Wacom social media in the Americas, where I get the wonderful opportunity to meet and work with amazing artists like today's guests, Claudia Bueno. Claudia is an internationally recognized Venezuelan born artist who creates immersive technological wonders using light, sculpture, painting, and sound. We think that Claudia's uniquely personal creative language is something that everyone should experience. And that's why it is our honor to have her here today, sharing part of her creative process and professional journey. Welcome to Connected In, Claudia. How are you?
Thank you, Elizabeth. I am so excited about being here. Hello to everyone who's here. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you wherever you are in the world and be a speaker in this beautiful conference. I have used Wacom tablets my whole life and over 20 years, and I'm very excited to connect with all of you. I'm currently in Sedona, Arizona, where I live and work. And I will be sharing a little bit about my journey as an artist, living all over the world, touching on different topics around creativity, technology, inspiration, and spirituality. And I was recently talking to my parents, who I love and are amazing. And I was telling them about this new chapter in my life. And they were listening. And one of them said, we're just over here kind of watching this movie, that's your life. And then my dad jumped in and said, it's not actually a full-length movie. It's like a short film that are completely unrelated to each other. They're not even part of the same TV show. And we laughed, and I'm using this because, I guess my life has been, in a way, all these different stories where there's different venues, different characters, and different soundtracks, and other people's lives are maybe more consistent, like my father, like same country, same wife, same friends, same job, and just same environment. So I think the thread that has connected all of my short films is definitely art. It's always been at the center of my life in everything I've done. So let's dive in. This is Venezuela, where I was born and raised. It is a beautiful, exotic paradise with incredible natural diversity and a very, very light culture. My life there was filled with outdoor adventures, camping, off-road into remote areas, beach, jungle, mountains, and when I was home, I spent most of my free time in my mother's art studio, making toys, making puppets, masks, and everything we could imagine. And this is also Venezuela. It's a country of conflict, violence, abuse, corruption, and a very strong division, and a very charged political situation that has only gotten worse in the last 20 years. And back in the time when I went to art school, there was a rising level of chaos and crime, which was really creating high levels of stress and paranoia for people. And crime was starting to knock on our doors with great frequency. We all started having stories of neighbors and family members and friends who were being attacked or kidnapped or shot. This was our reality. And I bring this up because with this level of turmoil has put a big print, a big mark in the life of Venezuelans. And we started losing our freedom, our personality, our opportunity. And that led to a big portion of Venezuelans actually leaving the country and starting lives wherever they could. And for me, this also defined my life and my journey. After being attacked at gunpoint, I decided I didn't want to live there anymore. And it was a sad decision leaving home, but I was in my early 20s, I was married, and we decided to leave and launch off in a world adventure that ended up lasting 13 years of traveling all over the world, and for me, making art wherever I was. And I wanted to show you, these are some of my first paintings in university, and it shows how it was reflecting everything what I was referring about. And it's pretty wild for me to see these paintings back to feeling the anguish that I was feeling back then, feeling trapped and feeling repressed, which was a response of everything I just mentioned, and also a response of growing up in a very conservative culture and going to an all-girls Catholic school. And as a woman, the way that I was raised, I didn't have a lot of freedom until I got married, which led me to marrying very young and leaving the country in my early 20s, seeking for that freedom that I was really yearning to have. And it wasn't all dark. These are images from the work I did at the end of art school when I became fascinated with light and movement, and this was the beginning of light art trajectory. These are typical scenes from Caracas, and they are lit with candles. So the flicker of the flame made the shadows to move and dance, and it was very mesmerizing and intriguing. And this is where the film started. And following everything I just shared, we decided to move to the safest place on Earth, where nothing is life-threatening. There are no natural disasters. There are no deadly animals. There's hardly any crime. And this was Switzerland. It was beautiful and perfect. And this time was all about recalibrating with nature, backpacking, snow fun, and culture. It was also the first time I was trying to grow my art career in a foreign country where I had zero connections and couldn't speak the language. And this wasn't easy. And Switzerland can be challenging for immigrants. There's a reason Switzerland is kept as this beautiful, intact, postcard picture perfect place that it is. And the Swiss are very proud of their culture, and they take great care of their country. And they're beautiful people. They're really, really good people. And if you're ever out of line and doing something not the Swiss way, they most likely will let you know. And I also learned that the most loyal friends you'll ever have. Switzerland gave me a lot of technology. One of the great perks about living in Zurich is that I got to access all this technology for the first time. And I was able to get these really incredible custom systems to do my art. And those included tracks, and they were super high-end and refined. And so it allowed me to play with new things and take my art to a new place. And in this time, my art became very white, very clean, and very refined in finish because that was available. And I would say Switzerland taught me a lot about professionalism and definitely fed my art with lots of innovation. After 3 years in Zurich, we moved to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Total everything here is sensorial overload. There was so much cultural diversity all over Southeast Asia. Everything was new: the foods, the smells, the fruits, the markets, the languages, the religions, the temples. It was all very, very fun and inspiring. And these were 4 years of a lot of exploration and friends and culture and travel. And being a foreign woman trying to run her own independent art business in a Muslim country was really not easy. My work has always required custom fabrication frames and structures, bases, and things like that. And Malaysia really challenged this part of my process. I remember I would get on the car to drive outside the city, which driving in Malaysia is already intense. And I would drive out to these industrial areas where you hardly see any woman. And I remember every time before heading out in these missions, feeling like I was getting ready to go on a really big expedition. I would have my map, my GPS that actually never worked, my phone charge, I had my pepper spray, I had my emergency contact numbers, and I had to take care of my safety as a foreign woman in a place that had some level of danger. And I remember feeling very, very nervous and challenged and intimidated. And this time taught me a lot about personal determination and self-trust and self-reliance and resilience. And it required, I would say it required a lot of creativity to communicate with people, and even more creativity to get men in these industrial businesses to take me seriously, to see me as a professional woman who needed a professional exchange with them. And sometimes it just didn't work, and they were unwilling to do business with when I would go home very good. And many times I wanted to quit, but luckily I didn't, because I love what I do. And so after a couple of years, I found the hacks, and I managed to get my basic needs for art covered. And in the end, I ended up finding great opportunities in the art world here in Kuala Lumpur. This is some of the art I was doing there. Because high technology and quality art supplies were difficult to find in Malaysia, I ended up working with new objects and materials that were available there. It'd be fun. It would be like in a scavenger hunt where I would go to Chinatown and Little India and start rummaging through these like shops packed with piles of things that you don't even know what are for or that they exist. And I would walk out of these places with random collections of things that I thought I could bring to the studio and play with, like bottles or fake nails or hairbrushes or fans, umbrellas, you name it, many things. And these explorations eventually led me to working with little bottles as a symbol of extraction of nature, which is a theme I was interested in. And I would say Malaysia filled my art with color and new themes and diversity of mediums and materials. And I also did my first light art installation there. It was called Fiberspace, and it was about the nervous system and synapses. It was a big web of resin-coated string with a video projection of fire and charcoal flames that made it look like signals were traveling through these fibers. It was a really exciting opportunity, and it was the start of my installation career. And there's a funny story about the making of this piece. You can see in the two photos on the top left. I had ordered all this resin to work with and was waiting for weeks for it to arrive. I had a big deadline, start working, and immediately developed this allergic reaction to the eyes would swell, my skin would break out, and so order a hazmat suit and wait for it, and then finally got it. The clock is ticking, right? The deadline is coming. And I also had a full mask. And I started working with those and immediately discovered that with Malaysia's overwhelming heat, which is so hot and also so humid, I would overheat and get lightheaded. So I couldn't do it. And so the next solution was that I figured out how to wear these two backpacks, one in the front and one in the back, and they were filled with ice. So as long as ice melting inside this, I could work, and that gave me enough time to get the process done and the deadline accomplished. And yeah, it's just one of those testaments of like what we do for what we love. It was not fun and it was very challenging, but it's a fun story now, and I'm glad I did it. And so I also decided I'm probably never gonna work with epoxy resin again. In Malaysia, I also started a design line that included jewelry, handbags, and cushion covers, and scarves, and other things. And I would like to pause from the slides here for a second to talk about something that has turned out relevant for me. And it is about having this fixed idea of what an art career looks like versus a fluid idea that comes all the opportunities that come your way, and it's more flexible than an inner guide. And once I started at university, I immediately started exhibiting in galleries, art fairs, national art competitions. And this idea of what the art path looks like started forming. And back then I was young. I was going by people's advice and recommendations. You need to be in this gallery, you need to exhibit in this museum, work with this dealer, and so on. And I took the challenge and was determined to do it all. And sometimes I found success and other times I didn't. And I really struggled to maintain my own compass and at the same time fit in that box of what a successful art career looks like. And in trying myself in that box, I ended up cutting parts of my authentic expression. And an example of this is this design line. I had to keep it secret from the art world. And that was a result of hearing from the art galleries that I was working with. They didn't like this because they felt it would devalue the higher priced art that they were representing. And so, again, I was trying to fit in this this idea, this vision of a career, and it led me to keep this on the side and keep it secret, and that started feeling like an inner divide for me. And it wasn't until much later that I started integrating those two sides of my career, ultimately deciding and feeling that it's all my art and it's all my expression, and big or small, it doesn't matter. And so while I was focused on such goals and targets to follow this idea, this fixed idea of an art career, I was forgetting what I truly love about being an artist, which is just to do art, to create, to invent freely with no limitations. And so I would encourage all of us to not be so concerned about sticking to a rigid path that's maybe been outlined for you, and really give yourself freedom to express whatever it is that you wish to express, to create what gives you joy and excitement. I mean, this is why we're artists, right? After Malaysia, we moved to the US, and in 8 years of being here, I've lived in 4 places, all incredibly unique and also kind of. The first one was California, which is a bizarre, beautiful, and otherworldly rocky desert. And Joshua Tree started challenging me in many, many ways. And here's where the breakdown of my life began, which was very necessary and accelerated my growth and catapulted my art in a whole new direction. In the US, we immediately launched a US jewelry brand that I designed, and we were doing trade shows all over the country representing the jewelry. My favorite part was that I got to paint a different mural on each show. And this whole process was intense. We put all of our eggs in one basket, in this basket, and the pressure really started building. I'll talk about that a little bit more. And back in the studio, in between the trade shows, this is the art that I was doing. It was make webs. I didn't really know what I was doing this or what it meant, and I can now see it as an attempt for connection, connected to something that was bigger than myself, sort of like a tapestry of life or something like that. And I would like to take a pause again to explore this for a little bit. I was feeling so disconnected from myself, from what I was doing, from the people around me. The focus had all gone into running a successful business and making a living solely from my art and design. And when you do that, when you make your art your livelihood, you risk taking away the freedom and enjoyment that you once had. It is possible to do it, so let's not get discouraged. But you might find that it's a difficult dance to try to make that freshness of authenticity, at the same time respond to the fact that you need to sell your art. And you start getting wrapped up in these loops of, I think this will sell better. If I change this, it'll have higher chances. And it's all very, very challenging. And I got burnt out. I felt like I was playing a game that I didn't like and I was trained to do. And this, mixed up with my personal situation and arising challenges in my marriage, started to build a really thick fog and confusion and lack of motivation. I was feeling depressed for the first time, and it was scary. It felt like life had gotten out of my hands, and I had no tools to handle the challenges I was facing. And I crashed. I totally crashed. I crashed hard. My as the artist and the wife that I had been over the last decade, which at this point was all of my adulthood, all broke down at the same time with the career crisis. So I had to stop, and I took a break from having art shows and deadlines and focused all my energy and resources and time in learning supportive ways to reconnect with myself, to find my inner compass, and to gain tools to move forward. And I needed to figure out who I was outside all these labels. And that's when I started that deep dive inwards. And for the following 2 years, I didn't do art for anyone other than myself. And it had absolutely no pressure that it had to be good in any way or sell. I started painting again as a way of catharsis. And this is where these cosmic webs started growing that you see here. And last 8 years, I would say I have dedicated most of my free time and resources into inner healing and transformation, because it has changed my life to so much better. And so now I'm a big fan. And this process has directly affected my art in a really powerful way that I will touch on a little bit later. And it all started with having this really deep longing for silence when my world was feeling very chaotic and very confusing. And one day I just sat down to type in silent meditation retreat, Joshua retreat. 10 days of silence, starting in 2 weeks. I applied, I got in. I had never meditated a day in my life and found myself doing the meditation retreats where you sit to meditate from 4 a.m. to like 9 in the evening, and you sit for 10 days every day with no distractions of any kind. And yeah, this was brutal. This was the best thing I had ever done so far, and gave me everything I needed to move forward. And I have since become a big fan of silent meditations retreat. I feel that in the silence, you can really start hearing the quieter message of what really matters, what's truly important. And when the mind finally quiets down, you're able to tap into new spaces beyond thinking, beyond doing. And this is where I've had my most profound experiences with feeling connected, feeling one with source, dissolving the mind, dissolving the body, dissolving the stories and the limitations, and just melting in peace and bliss. And it is these moments that have influenced my art from this point the most. And it is what I'm trying to express through my art, with this intention of providing spaces where viewers can feel that level of connectedness, that embrace, that feeling of coming home. So I try to set time apart every year to go in these life challenging immersive experiences that ultimately feed my soul and feed my art. And I would encourage everybody to find moments of silence and solitude to see what you discover. You know, you might discover that you have a really active monkey mind that's driving you insane. And if that's the case, there are many, many tools you can learn to calm the mind down. And you might also discover that you really enjoy being by yourself with the purity of your being and no other energies to disturb. Maybe you find both. Just try it. The next short film would be Jackson Hole, Wyoming. What a stunning place. This is one of my favorite places on earth. It is wild, it is raw, it is powerful, it is so, so, so beautiful and inspiring. And I first went there with an art residency where I got to spend a month just going out in the wild, taking photos in studio to sketch, paint, wash. It was very exploratory. And it was the first time in a very long time feeling a true connection with myself, process, and my surroundings. It gave me a break from everything and a space to get meshed, and I started feeling very alive again. It was a full reset. I think in this time, all the big questions came up, and little by little, I started the process to untangle the big mess I had created inside myself and in my personal life. And it was the hardest, most raw and chaotic time of my life, but also the most exhilarating and powerful and transformational, I would say. This is some of the art that I did while in that residency. Paper cutouts, you can see the influence of nature here. Like I said, it was casual and just lightheaded. It was exactly what I needed to this play and enjoy. And I went back to Jackson for another art residency with the Center for the Arts. And this is where I did my second large-scale installation. It was really fun and supportive experience. And this whole thing was built with chicken wire that was dipped in some sort of paint, and it had a light system that colored it with dynamic movements. And shortly after, I ended up moving to Jackson for a whole life fresh start. And there I started teaching art, finding great pleasure in doing it. I was teaching teenagers who had been in trouble with the law. I was teaching adults with special needs. I also started this program called Creative Unlock, which offered workshops and one-on-one sessions to help people unlock their creative expression. And it was all new, it was different, and most importantly, this was really important. For the time, I felt that what I was doing had a feeling of having a deeper purpose. And this was key for my career choices moving forward. And I would say finding purpose became my higher intention. Not too long after living in Jackson, I moved to the other side of the mountains to Victor, Idaho, which is a very small rural town. It's beautiful, and it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, stunning nature. These were years for me that were filled with solitude and reflection and nature, and also just letting the dust settle after giant life transitions. And here is where I created 2 big installation projects that are now exhibiting in Meow Wolf, Las Vegas, which I'll talk about in a little bit. I thought this would be home for me for a long time, but winters were kind of brutal, and I decided to go south, sun and less. But while in Vegas, I was doing these painting meditations, which are all done with one fine brush, never changing the brush. It's different kinds of ink on paper, and no planning at all. And I would just get in a trance of doing these. And these are attempts to reflect these experiences I was talking about in meditation, of feeling energy and connection to source. And I really, really enjoy doing these. I also started working with clay and really loving it. And I'm showing you this piece, even though this is not a piece that I consider finished. First attempt to do a sculpture of a human, a lot of mistakes, so forgive my mistakes. It's out of proportion, but that doesn't matter for what I want to bring up. I'm showing this because a woman who is blossoming, and she's peeling off all these layers, all these shells that start at the bottom. And at the bottom, you can see like shattered brick walls, like ruins that are broken down and falling over. You can see broken belts. Then there's this kind of warrior armor a bit higher that's also cracking open. Then there's tree bark, and it just goes up to get softer to plants and flowers that are growing around her heart. And I want to pause here and talk about de-armoring, or talk about the armor. There was a point very early on in my art career that I remember, where I had a number of challenging experiences that led me to this idea that I had to build thick skin to protect my feelings, to protect myself. And there was this one time I very clearly remember where I had my first art show in Miami. It was part of a fair. I was in university and super excited about this opportunity. My mom and I flew together from Venezuela to Miami. We invited friends. We were there at the opening, enjoying, feeling proud and celebrating. And the gallery owner came to me and said that he didn't want me to be there in person because he felt it was distracting for the clients. So basically, I got kicked out of my own opening. Now it's a lie, but in this moment, my first thick skin moment with art. I felt rejected. I felt instantly sick. I had nausea until the next day. And yeah, it was hard. And it left a big impression. And so there were other moments like this that led me to start building the armor, my armor. And with years, this armor got stronger. It got thicker. I felt like I could power through anything. Nothing could touch me, overcome and be protected. This armor actually started to take me into a gradual process of isolation and disconnect from myself and from the world. And the art also started suffering. It started losing its, I would say, its intimacy and its poetry. I think it started losing the heart, because it was just walled in and sheltered. And so I was there proudly wearing my heart shell without noticing that it had started trapping me. And it wasn't until years later, while living in Victor, that I went on this beautiful women's retreat for healing. The teacher started talking about this process of de-armoring. And that's it for the 7 days we were there together, little by little dismantling this armor that we had built, breaking down the stories, the conditioning, the limitations, and so on. And we started feeling all the feelings again with new curiosity and new intensity, and allowing anything to be expressed safely. And this was a really big liberating process for my transformation. I started noticing that as I dared to feel the challenging feelings, I was also rewarded with feeling the amazing and pleasant feelings, even with more intensity. So more happiness came, more bliss. Like the more I could feel my sadness and the grief and the anger, the more I could feel the happiness, the bliss, the joy, the fun. And my soul started coming through my art again. And it was a sort of like a Bible in my career. So hopefully your career, your path flows beautifully always, and you never have to build this armor, but most likely at some point you will have difficult experiences with the people you're working with. And I really believe now that good communication skills and boundaries can get us way further than the hard shells we build up to protect each other and ourselves from each other. So yeah, for any art critics, gamers, PR folks, like, we love you and we need you. And please remember that it is not just our art out there in the arena, it is our full soul and heart. This feels very vulnerable. And so, yeah, if you can, be gentle with us, we would appreciate it. Okay. In Venezuela, we have kind of a weird saying that says, Dios aprieta pero no ahorca. And what it says is, God tightens your throat but doesn't fully choke you. And so in the middle of this crisis, where I'm very choked, I got a miracle. And I got this invitation to apply for Meow Wolf Las Vegas. I had no idea what Meow Wolf was. And I got invited only because some years ago I had done this very small project in a music festival, and it was a fun project, but it wasn't anything outstanding. And the woman who directed the festival was now hired as the senior producer for Meow Wolf, and she remembered my work and thought that it would be a good fit. So they invited me to do 3 proposals. And yeah, I did. They invited us to do any proposal. I did 3 and they commissioned 2 of them. It was a big deal for me, a really big deal. So thank you, Marcy. You changed my life. Thank you, Meow Wolf. You changed my life. And I had never worked at this scale with these budgets. I went for it all. I gave it all, and it was the best working experience of my life. Meow Wolf opened January 2021, and it was a game changer, and my life will always be before and after Meow Wolf. And this image you're seeing is called Pulse. It's light and sound room where all the layers have a light system that makes everything oscillate and move and pulsate. And we'll show you a video of this at the end of the session. Another project that I did for Meow Wolf was called Fractalive, and it is a second iteration of the project you saw in Jackson. And yeah, this project was just grown in scale. We added elements. It was really fun and colorful, really big, and I really enjoyed doing it. Here are some images of just process for the Meow Wolf projects, like in the studio, building crates, process, just painting the panels with other people that were helping me out. Here are some photos installing with the team. It was really, really fun and so supportive. Everyone was just wanting to do the best expression of this project that we could do. It was really great. And this brings us to Sedona, Arizona, where I live now. And it is stunning. It is the woo-woo land of energy, crystals, vortexes, aliens. This land here is so weird and so unreal and so powerful. I love living here. And yeah, immersive art. Why immersive art? I get this question all the time. Why do you do immersive art? And the simple answer is because I love it. It challenges me. It excites me. It is different every time. I learn different skills, and meet different people and surround myself with different environments every time there is a project. So it keeps life very, very intriguing. And I also feel immersive art is becoming more and more valuable with the current culture. It is taking more to engage people. We just have become hard to impress. There's so much stimulation all the time that, you know, painting is not doing it. We're having to create environments that surround you, that have light, that have sound, that are interactive in some way, and hopefully this captures someone, and it does. I've seen it over and over. And so the question, I think the question I would like to bring up here is, can we, you know, while being totally mind blown with these amazing art projects that are around the world, can we still go back to be more impressionable with simple things? Like, can we be equally captivated by a forest, or sitting by the creek, or how the light changes throughout the day, or a deep conversation with someone? Can we notice the more like subtle, quiet, magic moments that enrich our lives every day? I sure hope we can. And like I said, still get to enjoy all the innovation that's going on. This here is a permanent installation at the Element Hotel in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And it's all done with photo etched stainless steel that is then powder coated, and it has a light system that colors it. It's all inspired in Malaysian vegetation, and yeah, it was a really fun project. This is another immersive art project. It's a permanent installation in San Francisco, and it was made with hand-shaped metal mesh, this really beautiful refined mesh and null system. And it's on it something that was inspired in jellyfish and seaweed and coral, just underwater life. And here's some other photos of just the fun that I've been able to have doing installation art. Like, I'm always up in a ladder or in a scissor lift, or being picked up by a crane, or working with fiber optics, you name it. It's been just, like I said, always changing, always new. Technology. Yeah, let's talk about technology. That seems relevant. Technology is taking art to a whole new level. There are endless tools that can make anyone's vision come true. And I'm so grateful to have access to all the many branches of technology that are needed to make projects. These projects have gotten complex, and they require a unique family of partnerships. And we all use different technology platforms to feed the vision with whatever's required, like design plans, light systems, sound fabrication, engineering, installation, and any other layer of this creative process. And I am super excited to be working with really amazing people who can help my ideas grow. And each project I have made takes a step further into technology, so it's always fun to look at what I did and then think about how can that evolve even more, and the answer is endless. It can always evolve more because there's always new tools that are coming in to help. So currently we're using custom softwares, we're using VR tools, we're using new LED systems, new, of course, wacom tablets, which are so incredible, and I couldn't live without a wacom tablet. And you know, all kinds of amazing products of technology. And also I want to say that for me, it is important to maintain that intimate touch of the artist's hand, of yeah, that connection that the artist has with a piece, that dialogue that builds over time, and have that be felt in the art, and not, you know, and have technology amplify the vision but not completely take over the vision. I think there's a fine line here that we have to watch. The flow. Yeah, I want to talk about the flow. Sometimes we're in the flow and life is so amazing, and sometimes we're not in the flow. And I recently went through a phase of really not being in the flow. It had to do with ending a long relationship and starting a life in a new town. And for some months, feeling like there was this strong river of flow activity just going right next to me with full current. But I was stuck over here on the side, spinning in an eddy, not going anywhere. Sometimes even I was trying to swim up the stream or hang onto a rock in the middle of the current. It was all just making it more and more difficult for myself. Yeah, just this reminder that the source of aliveness and creativity, that flow of creativity, is always there. It's always available to us. But we get so wrapped up in our stories and our dramas that we lose access. We forget how to tap in. And we all go through phases like this when life presents challenging situations and we forget. And then at some point we start remembering again how to plug in, and we start feeling ourselves again. We stop resisting, we start accepting, and we flow. And even when we're steady, okay, we can accept that we're stuck and give ourselves the time that we need to be nurtured and come back, and eventually we get out. And there are so many support systems and resources and tools. And I just want to bring this up because a lot of us are scared, or we're scared to ask for help, or we felt a weakness. And the truth is it's courageous to ask for help and go find the things that you need to get yourself out you are, become more at peace with your life and with who you are and with having. And you know, they say that the harder you fall, the higher you rise. And I really feel there's truth in that. And so after you're stuck and then you flow again, it's like the dam of creativity just like breaks open, and you're flowing now with greater force than before. And to me, it's all about learning self-love and acceptance, which, gosh, I wish I had learned about self-love way earlier in life rather than in my 30s when I first heard about it. And it's not an easy thing to learn, but it can be learned. And once you start practicing self-love and integrating that into your being, life does become a lot easier, and you find a lot more peace with things, with life, with situations. Shadow and light. So as you can see, my life has been a long relationship with shadow and light. And first it was all about the shadows in my art, finding the shadows everywhere I went, photographing them, creating shadows, projecting shadows. And the shadow kind of took over, and it took over my personal life as well, until I started doing shadow work. And I want to offer this for those who aren't familiar with this concept. Shadow work is when you are working with your unconscious mind to uncover parts of yourself that you repress, or parts of yourself that you hide from yourself. It is like a process of learning how to gain awareness of your subconscious patterns, understanding why we react the way we react, why we feel the way we feel, what are the behaviors that we've learned that are just playing off in automatic without us even noticing, and starting to understand who we are beyond all of that conditioning, trauma, culture. And when you start gaining awareness of that, you can start changing. And the funny thing for me was noticing, bringing it back to the art, that as I was doing my shadow work, light started gaining more presence in my art. And light is now definitely the protagonist of what I do. And I hope it stays that. Lifetime career. Yeah, these careers can be slow and just you over and over. How bad do you want to be an artist? Do you want to quit? Do you want to keep trying? Should I get a normal job? You know, we have the idea that there's all the normal people out there with normal jobs, and then there's us artists over here. And I know this isn't true because each job is creative in its own way and artistic. But you know, we've had this little voice in our heads sometimes that comes in and is saying things like, "Can you just be normal like everybody else and get a real job and save yourself some of this roller coaster ride that is the art career?" And it can be hard to take our most vulnerable creations and expressions and try to make a living of it, knocking on galleries' doors, trying to convince them that your work is special, that it is worth it, 5 minutes of their time to look at your portfolio. And, you know, it's hard and exhausting. It can be, but let's not lose hope, because gallery owners and museum directors, they're not mean. They're just busy. And you might not be the right fit for each other anyway. So it might take some time. And I believe that if you really stick to the trust you have in your art or your creative expressions, and you act with integrity, you will find the right fit, and the right fit will find you. And then things are easy. And also, you know, I feel like, let's be honest with ourselves, most of us artists didn't really choose art. I feel like it was the other way around. Like, art actually chose us, and we can't fight it. And so we become artists because it is a deep soul's calling, and we don't want to do anything than art with our life. So, do we really have a choice to quit, would be my question. My vision. People ask me, you know, what's your vision moving forward? What are you aiming to do? And I'm very open and very active of, you know, the different turns that my art career can take. And I would say that I have a deep intention of continue to create installations that work as healing spaces that are beautiful, inspiring, and moving, and that people connect with self, with God, with nature. I would love to start working with wellness centers, alternative healing spaces, hospitals, and spaces like this to really bring home that intention, that healing intention behind the art. And so if there's anyone out there with ideas and connections, please reach out. I also have a couple of big projects I'm working on that open next year. And one of them is a multi-room immersive Hermitage Museum and Gardens in Virginia. And this project is very exciting to me. It's all about the heart. And a bigger picture, I have a vision, and I don't know why I have this vision, but it's there, that one day I'll be part of maybe funding an educational center where creativity and art are the platform that works together to do inner healing. And this feels like all my worlds really coming together. This is my last slide, and it's about feeding creativity. Creativity needs food and water. And I know for me, even in those times when I'm away from the studio, it's like I have these on that are scanning for creative inspiration. And so it doesn't matter where I am, and if I'm in a break, I'm always looking for you, or see something from a different angle, or capture something that was hidden. And you know, I've also learned what spaces directly feed creativity for me, and they are what you see here. They are nature, they're transformational retreats, they are paddleboarding, they are jumping in cold lakes, they are women's circles, ecstatic dancing, rock balancing, and so many others. And yeah, making art is a healing tool. It is very empowering. We have the ability to create something that didn't exist a second ago. And we can beautify spaces, we can inspire people, we can communicate. I really feel our creations are gifts that transform the world around us. And I want to leave you with a strong invitation to find what feeds your creativity, and to go and to let creativity touch everything in your life. And we're gonna play a video just to finish, and it is my favorite project that I've done so far. It is the project called Pulse that I showed you before. This video is courtesy of Meow Wolf, and it was filmed and directed by my brother, who's an amazing filmmaker. And if you ever have a chance to visit Meow Wolf, any of their exhibits, just blow your mind, guaranteed. Thank you so much for being here. I send you all great wishes to you and your paths, and until soon when we meet up in the Q&A right after the video. Thank you. We have to take it step by step and celebrate the little victories that we have every day in the studio. It's a big task, and if we look at the whole thing all together, it can feel pretty daunting. So, Pole started about 5 years ago when I got to visit this area with an art residency. And I went to Yellowstone National Park, which really blew my mind. That place is unreal, it's magical. You feel like you're walking through the exhales of Earth. And you get to visit these pools where these tiny microorganisms live. I think I spent an entire day just photographing, zooming into these patterns that are formed. They're really intricate, really interesting. They're like crusty and weird. On that trip, I also got to visit the Grand Teton National Park and explored up in the mountains, the lakes and the rivers and the lush forests. And the kind of scary wildlife that there is, it all makes you feel really small and at the same time connected, one with all. Being here on that experience, surrounded by all this nature from both Yellowstone and Grand Teton, started coming through in the studio in the process of developing poles, which is really a tribute to life. So I started exploring patterns from micro to macro, from molecular geometry to cellular growth to algae to seaweed, coral, leaves, trees, and so on growing. Then I started extracting those patterns into paper, drawing them, painting them, figuring out how to make them three-dimensional. And eventually poles came together as this world that connects everything, this world where things are intertwined, they're one, there's a sense of integration, everything's linked. One thing needs the other, and they're all pulsating, throbbing, and living all together. Dot by dot, line by line, one by one, we are hand painting every single intricate little pattern. And we're making 60 panels, and each panel takes a couple of days as a team, so it's a lot. Poles started as small little experiments, then turned into medium-sized art pieces, and is now becoming an entire room where all the walls, all the surrounding walls are art. It really is a treasure opportunity to, as an artist, get the message and the invitation to dream big, dream without limitations, and have somebody that's saying, we'll make it happen, we'll help you, we'll build it with you. It's truly amazing. I realize now that the deeper I went into this project, the more it started touching deeper fibers within me, becoming a more personal reflection of my own inner world and how I experience life and energy. There is a center, a womb that radiates across the room, and it represents that universal source of energy that feeds life to all beings. My hope is that Poles brings visitors back to that feeling of coming home that arises when we're able to go beyond our individual selves and connect to a much bigger expression of life.
Thank you so much, Claudia, for that amazing inspirational talk. You're absolutely stunning. Your body of work is speaks for itself. Please go and follow Claudia everywhere on social media. She's Claudia Bueno everywhere. And please go and explore a little bit more of her art because it's truly immersive. There's no real way I can describe it and put it into you. She did a great job at summarizing everything. But now I'm going to go over a few questions from our audience who's been watching on YouTube so that we can wrap up this talk, getting to know Claudia just a little bit more.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for everybody who's submitting their questions. These are a little long. They went deep in their questions, so I'm going to take some time reading these. Okay. Let me see. I'm just going to pick them at random because they came in different orders. Claudia, what were some of the difficulties you faced in your early career in regards to your installation work? You mentioned the learning curve with working with the resin webbing. What other impactful things did you learn early on? And what tips do you have for up and coming artists overcoming these difficult moments?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. Each project presents its own set of difficulties that is always new and kind of unpredicted. And so, whenever you're working with new materials, I would say it's really important to allow for a process of experimentation and making sure that you find the right formula to build your vision. And so, for example, for that project that I did in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, it was going to live outside. It was an outdoor project that had to endure the winter months. And I was living in California then, where we don't have a strong winter. And so I had to make sure that whatever paint I was using to coat these shapes that were metal was going to be okay with the ice and the wind. And so I did all these experiments, putting it in paint, different kinds of paint, and then coating them in water and then putting them in the freezer, letting them freeze and taking them out and like moving them around and seeing what paint would crack after being frozen. So there's things, that like this that you're going to have to figure out, and they're specific to each project. Yeah, I would say, go ahead.
Do you often work with material experts? Do you hire people to help you learn certain things, or you just go and experiment on your own to learn a different medium on your own?
It's changed with time. When projects used to be a little bit more informal and casual and handmade, it was more me in the studio figuring things out. And now that we're working on bigger projects that go through a very, very long process of permitting and engineering and approvals, I have to the sources of whoever's providing the materials and give all the specs of the tolerances of the materials. Are they fire resistant? Are they this? Are they that? So it's a very exhausting process that happens before each art installation. But yeah, it's part of the process now because we have to make things that are safe and that will last. And so yeah, it changed.
Thank you, Claudia. Another question. You mentioned not having a rigid path has opened opportunities for you, like in the case of your jewelry project. But how do you, or how do I, this person is asking, how do I build a brand? And is that even important as an artist? How do I build a brand and remain open to change at the same time?
Yeah, the answer I would give you right now, like if I right now wanted to build a brand, I wouldn't build a brand separate of myself. It would be in the same umbrella of my art. It would just be a different line within my art, right? And that's kind of the distinction I was making back then, that I was led to believe that I had to keep that brand separate from the bigger art that I was doing because it would influence each other in not a positive way. And I debated with that, and I feel different now. And so yeah, building your art career and your brand, I would say just give it all your effort, keep it really close to you, meaning authentic in your expression, your unique gifts. Like really get clear on what are your special gifts that are just yours and nobody else's, and let that be the lead and the guide of the brand that you do. A way you're going to enjoy it more, and it'll just be a more unique product for the world.
Right on. Thank you, Claudia. There's a couple of questions here that are related, so I'm going to consolidate them. It has to do with materials because you work with so many. What is your favorite material to work with? And then the second question, what is the most unexpected material you've ever worked with?
Okay. My favorite materials, I think, yeah, ink, paint, just making a mess of color and water and have it be very accidental and very spontaneous on paper with brushes and getting my hands dirty. I really, really enjoy that. And I miss it because I don't get to do a lot of that right now. And I would also like to continue to work play. There's something about just your hands in that material and just molding things that's very, very satisfying and grounding. I really enjoy that too. The unexpected ones would be just, yeah, different kinds of resin, paints, like spray paint finishes that are never considered to be like maybe art materials. So you don't get to really use them in art school very much, but then you're out trying to figure out how to build something that's completely new. And there you are at Home Depot getting something that's designed for the industrial use, but then somehow readapting it to your art world. And so, yeah, I've had moments of standing at Home Depot, just like in front of the paint aisle, being completely lost. And then somebody coming in and saying like, oh yeah, you should get just like this thing called elastomeric. And that is perfect because it's elastic and they use it for finishing houses where the weather harsh, and like that'll be perfect for Wyoming project. And I would have never known. So there's always things like that.
Thank you, Claudia. Another question here. You talk about your life being like a bunch of little short films. This requires perpetual change. Is Claudia Bueno in perpetual change? And should artists be more prone to change in order to be more creative?
Can you say the last part again?
And
I
is
didn't hear
change
it.
important? And is change important in art in order to remain creative?
Yes, yes, yes. Allow as much change as is coming in your life. I feel change is what keeps things fresh and exciting and evolving. Ultimately, change leads to evolution and transformation. So if you're allowing your inner change, then everything you do is going to be changed by that. And yes, I like I said, kind of a unique life that I've chosen to live, and it's been really, as much as it has been fun and adventurous and exciting, there's also challenges in having so much change. And those challenges at times have led me to feel very uprooted, not grounded. I feel no sense of belonging anywhere, no sense of real home because I've moved so much. Also, the friendships I started to build, it's 3 years into the friendship, and then I'm moving to a different country and I never get to see them again. So, there's definitely a yearning in me to slow down now and stay settled and just grow roots in one place. And that doesn't mean welcome change, but maybe change comes in a day.
Right on. Thank you, Claudia.
Mm-hmm.
You also spoke earlier about the importance of silent meditation. How important is nature or reconnecting with nature in your art process?
Thank you for bringing that up. I had it in my presentation and then it was too much to say all at once. But yes, as you see, everything in my life, every chapter has been surrounded by nature, and I've chosen to live in places that are places where you feel like you're living in nature. And to me, nature is, it's my temple. It's where I have this phrase that I say, the wild is where I go to remember who I am. Because there's something really humbling about stepping into nature on your own and just feeling that flow that is just happening, and there's no drama and there's no confusion, and it's just pure and perfect and beautiful. And being there feeling like I said in the video, like small, surrounded by the magnificent nature that is in this planet, is definitely encouraging for connection and feeling connected.
Good advice. What advice do you have for other artists that feel like they're disconnected from their work or facing creative block? What can you do? What do you do to feel reconnected to your work?
Yeah, so those things I listed out on my last slide, I would recommend that you seek out spaces and activities that help you feel very alive and excited. And that connection comes automatically when you feel alive. So, for example, something that to me was completely unexpected is how ecstatic dancing, I don't know if you're familiar with what that is. It's a thing that's becoming really trendy in the world, and it's a way of dancing that's ceremonial, it's substance free, it's a sober activity, it's not social. You go and you dance with yourself, and it's just a way of expressing, and it's dancing to reach ecstasy. That's why it's called ecstatic dancing. And it's become one of my most therapeutic activities to do. There's a lot of ecstatic dancing here in Sedona, but I actually started seeking it out everywhere I go because, yeah, it helps you move and feel alive, helps you be embodied, be in your body, in touch with what's happening, and move things and move energy and move emotion. And so, that works for me. So like I said, I encourage you to find and test out different things that you've never done and see which one is resonating and which one is helping you out, and then give it a shot and deepen into, once you choose something, give it a try for a long time and see really get the benefits from it.
Somebody asked a question about your inner voice. Obviously, we all have one. Do you listen to your inner voice often? How often do you ignore your inner voice? Does it get in the way of your creativity?
It depends where that voice is coming from, right? And so that inner voice, most of the time, I would say, is coming from a very mental process and intellectual process, and that's the one we have to watch for and be careful of. And but there's other times when that inner voice is coming from your center, from your intuition, from your truth. And so we can learn how to differentiate which one it is. And this might be hard in the beginning, right? Because we don't know. And the mind is so smart that it's going to be in disguise telling you it's the heart, but it's really the mind. So it's a process of learning how to separate them and recognize them. And yeah, listen to whichever one lands more in your truth.
Listen to your gut, but only when
Listen
it's
to your gut.
Yes. You mentioned earlier also making art for yourself, not just for a client, just for a means of work or money. What kind of art do you like making just for you, just for Claudia?
It's what I was explaining before. Ink. I have a beautiful tray filled with hundreds of little jars of different kinds of ink of all colors. They're so beautiful. Some are transparent, some are acrylic, some Bombay ink, Indian ink, all of it. And I have these beautiful Chinese brushes that I bought in Malaysia. And that would be my choice of, if I have free time and I just want to do art for fun and play, that's what I would do.
Thank you, Claudia. Another question from the audience. Let's see. How do you approach a project or a piece or a part of a project that requires or needs you to learn a new tool or technique? Your work is so multimedia and multidimensional. Has there ever been a practice or a tool that has been just too difficult for you to learn?
I would say that I have a personality that is very persistent. And once I get something in my mind, I try to figure it out. And I feel very lucky that usually I stay with it and I don't give up. And this has been very helpful in my art process. And also it has the other side of the coin. It can be really exhausting because there's never enough. There's never an end. But yeah, is there a material? The question was, is there a material that?
Yeah, is there a material that just proved to be too difficult for you to learn, or a technique that was just too complicated that
Okay. Yes. I attempted to weld a couple of years ago this giant sculpture that our the ski resort in Jackson, Wyoming. And I think I gave it like 5 days of welding, and I just didn't like it. I didn't like the separation between the mask and the gloves and not being able to see what you're doing because it's so dark. And that was one that I decided I'm not going to try. And I'm going to team up with someone who actually loves welding and is great at welding. And that person's going to be very excited to see my vision come true instead of me forcing myself through it. So that worked out better. Yeah.
You are a very accomplished artist in many, many different mediums. Did you have a traditional art education background, or were you self-taught? Can you walk us a little bit with how you?
I studied art in Venezuela. I went to art school, and it was a 5-year study. My last year, I got a scholarship to go to Spain. And so it was great because in art school in Venezuela, we didn't have a lot of technology. So I learned a lot of just traditional ways of working with art and making things. And then in Spain, I got to explore and experiment with animation and set design. And those are two components that drove me to then work with light and movement. So yeah, I had formal studies, but I would say that my bigger school was my mother. She's an incredible artist, and she provided me and my brother with a dream that was filled with all the materials and all the things that you can think of to make anything you can think of. And so we were always creating things in the studio and learning how to play with new materials and new mediums. And so by the time I got to art school, I already had a big head start. Thanks to her.
We saw in your video that your pieces require a lot of handwork and a lot of manpower, a lot of people to help you sometimes. Is it something that you really enjoy, big collaborative projects, although you're the mastermind? Is a bigger team able to always translate your vision?
In my experience, yes. Collaborations are amazing. I'm really excited to have collaborations right now for my new projects. Like I said, we're a unique family for each one of the projects, and we get to work together for years. These projects, a couple of years from beginning to end, and you're meeting every couple of weeks on Zoom calls, and you're doing studio visits and doing prototypes, and so you get close to these people. And when they're the right fit, they really add to the vision because they're bringing genius over your vision. And so now, instead of it just being you have all these people supporting and feeding the art. And so, yeah, I love collaborations, and I couldn't do what I do without them.
You also mentioned that leaving your country and being able to travel the world obviously opened you to a lot of different influences for your art, different experiences. What do you say to artists who may not have the opportunity to travel, who may not have the opportunity to go see other cultures, learn new techniques, learn from new parts of the world the way you have? How can they enrich and also explore maybe within their own world in a more modest way?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for this question. I think our art is always an inevitable mirror of what we're living, right? And so for me, my art was always mirroring all these adventures that I was having all over the place. But had I stayed in one place, it would have mirrored that one adventure that was right there. And so I don't think you need to go seek out these adventures. You can get nourished and inspired wherever you are. And I think I would bring it back to really tuning in to what's going on around you and paying attention and more reasonable. Like I said before, like, can you, excuse me, can you start noticing things that maybe are unnoticed by most people, or see things from a different angle than most people are seeing? Like, there's so much content around us in our immediate surrounding that I feel you're never going to run short of inspiration. even in lifestyles that are not so nomadic. You can always find your own connection with your world, and also that inner adventure is endless. So if you start diving in and really exploring inside of yourself, going into spaces, whatever that is for you, that helps you go in, that is an endless source of inspiration. So yeah, I don't think you need all the travel. The travel is great, and it's fun, and it's helped me in my own unique way. Art will look different just because of a different situation and living a different lifestyle, and that doesn't make it less interesting by any means.
Well said. Yeah. Do what you can with what you have. It's always good advice. Um,
Mhm.
you mentioned in your presentation, you touched a lot, I mean, not a lot, but you talked very strongly about your connection with technology and how these tools have helped you further your art and maybe express in new ways. But you're also very cautious because you always want to have that personal touch and that very intimate connection to your pieces. As
Mhm.
technology evolves and AI and VR become more mainstream, are you looking at these developments with with an optimism, or are you afraid that they hinder some of this creativity?
I would say both. Yeah, there's a lot I don't know about the technology's future taking us, and I can feel some resistance and some fear about things that I'm projecting are going to be. But at the same time, technology can be a tool that can always help us, and if we use technology with intention and purpose and integrity, then it's just one more tool like anything else, right? And so I can see it both ways.
That's awesome. I agree with you. Obviously, we're a technology company and we're always looking ahead with an optimism eye. And artists like you inspire us because we also believe that there should be a harmony between technology and humans, and that
Mhm.
human touch should never lose its place, especially in digital art. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Claudia. This is going to wrap up our talk today. Thank you so much
Mm.
for sharing so much of your journey, for being so candid and so generous with your experience with us. If you have any last words you want to share with our audience tonight?
No, gratitude for being here, giving me this opportunity, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, something about it helps you in the slightest way. Thank you.
I think you inspired us all tonight to slow down, enjoy the quiet a little more, and find ourselves, because
Mhm.
maybe we need to all find our flow. So thank you so much,
Mhm.
Claudia, for showing us how you found your flow. And thank you to everyone who tuned in to watch Connected Inc. on Creativity Day. We have more events coming up, so stay tuned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. This was great.
Thank you, Claudia.